Okay, today we are joined by four of Australia's most incredible blockchain community members. Please welcome Karen Cohen, Cindy Nicholas, Ralph Kalsi, and Nadeem Shaikh. How are you guys?
Hi, good. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
for
for
having
having
us
us.
here.
Cool. I know who you are, but I'm going to go around the screen or table, and if you can give a brief introduction of who you are and your place in the blockchain community. I'll start with you, Karen.
Oh, hi. Thanks for having me on again. So my name's Karen Cohen. I'm part of the blockchain community for the last 3 years. I'm on the board of BlockChain Australia, and I run Women in Blockchain in Melbourne and help run Women in Blockchain in Sydney as well.
Awesome. Ralph?
My name is Ralph Kalsi. I'm the CEO of BlockChain Australia Solutions. We are a technology company. We help all the way from consulting to end-to-end software development. Been in the blockchain space for the last 4 years and looking forward to work on a lot of new exciting projects.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Cindy?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks ever so much for having me along today. I'm Cindy Nicholson. I'm the CEO of Serendip ID. We specialise in digital identity, data privacy, and data protection, which includes basically technology and training solutions and risk assessments. I've been involved in the whole blockchain community now since 2015. I was on the board with ADCA. So yeah, I was on the board until the end of last year. I've got a passion for digital identity, and I really think that it's something that users should be empowered to own. So that's where I come into play around blockchain. I believe that blockchain has a strong place to play in that space.
Awesome. Glad to have you, Cindy. And we have Nadeem.
Hey, thanks guys. My name is Nadeem Shaikh and I am Chief Technology Officer at BlockChain Australia Solutions, and my background is in tech space, have been a software developer to start off with, and then have been working as a solution architect, blockchain architect for about 3 years now. I am also a member of the BlockChain Australia and have been involved in the space for about 3 years now. And yeah, looking forward to the chat.
Awesome. I'm excited by today's panel. Let's get into it. So I guess the news at the moment, there's all been about quarantine, isolations, PPEs, vaccinations. So today's topic is about COVID-19 and the blockchain. COVID-19 has taken the world by surprise, completely changed the way we live because we're working at home, schooling from home. We're not eating out anymore, seeing friends, visiting family, traveling overstate and interstate. And also changed how healthcare is provided around the world. Seeing your doctor for a checkup can now be done online via telehealth. Scripts can be electronically sent to pharmacies for patients to pick up. COVID-19 testing results are sent directly to your mobile now, and your healthcare hospital processes has changed dramatically. We had a doctor on the channel, so I'll basically link up here if you wanted to have check that out. And healthcare is moving online because there's minimized human contact, reduce of risks of transmission, and protecting medical data. Having access to the trusted medical supplies and receiving accurate health information is now more important than ever due to the digital shift. So COVID-19 highlight the issues surrounding medical data, record management, and supply chain monitoring frameworks. Let's get to the panel. So the topic we're first discussing is healthcare moving online, and to be able to share your medical records with your doctor, pharmacist is crucial to receiving proper care. It needs to be secure and accessible by only the authorized personnel. There are continued concerns regarding the security of information. Critically and valuable use case has been contact tracing. So I'll start with Ralph. How can the blockchain be used to help protect this information? Are these people working on solutions already? And what are the challenges that you see?
Well, this is a great topic. We all understand that since COVID, things have changed. So let's take one example. in the supply chain itself. We know there was a massive shortage of PPE medicines around the globe. Now, while everyone was trying to find all these solutions, IBM partnered up with the Digital Trust, another technology company, where they come up with a use case called Rapid Supply Connect. Now, what this does, this allow buyers and suppliers, for example, health institutions, government agencies, if they want to access or verify any non-traditional suppliers or new suppliers, now they have access to supply chain inventory in a real time. So this way, those suppliers are already verified on the blockchain. As you understand, blockchain can verify this data is secured. And so now every time when they do require to fulfill their needs, they can simply go to the blockchain and they can trigger these things, and they know these who's actually carrying those supplies, and then they can push those orders. So this is kind of creating a new way to creating a trust. And also another big part is, if they are dealing with these new suppliers, they can trust them, because since these suppliers are verified, they know they can see the whole life cycle where these medicines were packed, manufactured, distributed. The whole life cycle can be tracked and traced. So this is where the biggest use case I've seen that IBM has worked recently.
Awesome. Cindy, your views on this topic, Cindy?
Yeah, look, I look at this from a data perspective as well, and the way I think about it is, if you imagine your own doctor's surgery, if you think about that doctor's surgery, your medical records and those of your community are all kept on their databases, and these are just small to medium-sized businesses, and they're focusing on their patients' health. So, they don't have sufficient protection necessarily in place for protecting their data. So that data could very well reside on a blockchain solution, but it's also important to understand that there's different types of blockchain solutions, predominantly either public or private. So with the public blockchains, anyone can access information, and with private blockchains, you need to be invited to join or authorized to gain access to certain information. So in the case where sensitive data is at risk, it's important to look at which platform's best suited for the function needed. So in my opinion, blockchain can indeed provide benefits for online healthcare services, and it can not only enable a security layer to patients' information, but can enable interoperability with other healthcare organisations where there's a consistent view of a patient and availability to see their access and obviously what type of medication they've been prescribed previously, so that there's no clash of those particular prescriptions. So data is very, very important to be protected of those patients, and I think the blockchain plays a key role in that.
Awesome. Nadeem?
Yeah, so I think what has happened with this, with the whole situation, is that the reliance on technology and going digital has increased tremendously. So everyone is now forced to go online and go digital. We have been seeing that trend for some time in the past decade, but this has literally forced everyone to go digital. So I think the COVID situation has put forward a situation wherein everyone is forced to go digital, and now this creates a problem that how do you solve this situation, right? So first things first is that we got a situation, we got to go digital, and now we need to find the tools and technologies which will allow us to go digital in the safe and secure manner. So once we understand that there are so many benefits of going digital by storing the health records in secure databases and then conducting all this trials and then consultations online, then we can go to the next step of finding what is the right technology for it. And blockchain, as Cindy mentioned about the private blockchain, I feel that private blockchain offer the right solution for this kind of a use case, wherein the data is encrypted and stored on the blockchain, and also only invited members will be part of the consortium or the nodes. So nobody outside the consortium is able to access the data. So if you look at the features and understand what blockchain brings on the table, it very well needs or meets the requirements of such a solution. So provenance, data security are some of the key elements which blockchain brings to the table, which are much needed for a solution like this.
Sure. And Karen?
Yeah, I actually had a telehealth appointment this week, and I requested a record, and they sent me an email and said, can you confirm your full name, your date of birth, your address, so we can send you your results via email? And I just wanted to just call into a little ball and scream. It was just like, oh my God, that's all of my data. That's it. That's all you need to get my ID between my server and your server. And I actually rang them and I said, look, this is not okay. But it just highlights the fact that, we've built this telehealth sort of process really quickly in COVID. And then we haven't associated any system that allows us to share medical records in a secure format. And this whole idea of having blockchain enabled data where we can actually control who's seen it, who we're sharing it with, and the security of our health data is so important. So I think we really are falling behind where we need to be in terms of health data.
So the next section we want to talk, I guess, about supply chain. I think Ralph touched on it with having this trust and understanding where your suppliers are coming from. Like you want to make sure that things are coming from a viable source, not counterfeit. In terms of blockchain solutions, how have you seen use cases apply to supply chain management, and how do you see this changing the future of supply chain and the role of blockchain experts for the future world? Ralph?
Again, so I've been seeing a lot of companies, they've been testing and trialing new projects, especially on tracking and tracing. So there's a company called Pharmatex, and there are a few other companies that are already testing, example, psychedelics. They want to try psychedelic medicines and cannabis. But the more important side that they want to see whether the product that the end user or patient is receiving, it's a not, counterfeit, like it's not fake, it's a real. They also want to identify the source. So these companies are already trialing these products, or even for medicines. Now we understand in poor countries, in third world countries, we have seen a lot of fake medicines that are supplied. Now medicine industry is a $1 trillion industry, and $200 billion worth of counterfeit medicines are actually infiltrated in the system. Now, those third world countries are suffering from diseases like cholera and other lot of diseases like malaria. So it's so important and vital that at least the people who are receiving on the other end, they know that they're receiving this, the medicine which is real, not fake, because this is death. People can die, they can lose lives. So it's a very crucial, and more companies we're going to see, they're going to start adopting this. And some of these companies are named, they're already successfully doing this. And it's a very interesting, those founders have their own, one of the founder, he lost his, one of the relative because they were given a wrong cancer medicine. So he was fascinated with this. He said, no, I'm going to try my own thing. So yeah, definitely, this is what I see in the next couple of years. There will be more trials on the blockchain itself.
Karen, your thoughts on this topic?
One of the groups that I belong to on Facebook is by Australian owned. So one of the big things I think we've seen in, that in the whole COVID thing was how hard it was to get things out of China during this time, and suddenly there's a big growth to make sure that we're making things ourselves back in Australia. We're investing back into manufacturing. We want to know when we go to the supermarket, we look at a label and it says made in Australia, that really is made in Australia. And there's like a massive distrust of the supermarkets, of Woolworths brands, of Coles brands, saying that they're made in Australia, but they're not really, or they were packaged here, but the product's actually from Spain. So I think this whole provenance piece and being able to track from farm to plate is a massive one. Been talking about it for 3 years. There's a few people that are actually doing it well, but we're yet to see it in the mainstream. So I'm really excited to see blockchain in action on this one.
Sure, thanks for that, Karen. So yeah, we'll go to yourself, Cindy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think with all the supply chain things, it fundamentally comes down to trust and security. Yeah, how do we ensure that when we release that product to the purchaser, we have complete trust that that item isn't going to be tampered with along the journey. And especially when we're talking about luxury items like diamonds or Wagyu meat, for example. But this also applies to other areas like charity donations, for example. A few years ago, I met Joseph Thompson in Ireland. He's the CEO of AidTech. And he gave me the story about how he came about to build his company, which I won't go into at this moment, but it was very interesting because it came from a very passionate place. And he basically wanted to ensure that anybody who made a contribution to a charity was able to trace where that donation went and where it actually ended up, and did it actually get spent in the areas that it was intended to be spent. So then I noticed that this company, AidTech, actually partnered with the Red Cross to increase their transparency for their donors as well. So, we talk about the future and how do we, how is there a role that this plays, and what sort of future is there? I think there's going to be a lot more collaboration in these sorts of organisations to address specific areas of supply chain management for enabling increased security and transparency. So supply chain companies can collaborate themselves, as some focus on smart contracts, others on tracking, others on fraud prevention and transaction processing. So I think that's where the future is going to be. We're going to start to see a little bit more collaboration there.
That's great. Nadeem?
Yeah, I think supply chain is a very vast use case, right? So there are several factors in supply chain which can be improved using a technology like blockchain. And the reasons for that are multifaceted. So one is tracking, right? What is the source of the goods? So that covers the provenance aspect. And one of the classic use case of blockchain is provenance. You can verify what was the source of the goods. And as Karen mentioned, that it could be relevant to people who want to buy locally from Australia, but it could also be relevant for people who want to understand if the goods were sourced responsibly. One of the projects that comes to my mind is Everledger, which develop a blockchain technology for making sure and tracking the complete process and the steps of diamond, and they're ensuring that it is responsibly sourced and things like that. The other example that comes to my mind is about food. Checking the provenance of where the food was sourced from. So it could be beef or it could be any other food item. So it's very important. So that's one important use case. The other use case, as Cindy mentioned, is about the trust. So with the rapid globalization, there is a big demand for people to collaborate and work together in order to go to the next level and build their businesses. So there is improved demand for trust between the partners, and technology provides a way to trust each other. So using smart contracts and using shared data model, two parties can trust each other by looking into their own ledger, as opposed to trusting the other party in terms of the data that they are sharing with them. So these are two scenarios which come to my mind, two use cases which can have rapid impact on the way that supply chain ecosystem is progressing. A couple of other projects that come to my mind is IBM Food Trust, which is working closely in terms of tracking and provenance, identifying the provenance of food. The other one is, in fact, Blockchain Australia Solutions have partnered with a company called Quill Hash. They have a product called Quill Trace, where the product can be used in tracking pharmacy, like in tracking medicines, in tracking food, and all of those kind of use cases. So it's a very exciting space, and we are looking forward to work together with partners in the industry on that.
Cool, awesome. So just taking it back to COVID, I guess COVID-19, because I have so many representatives here on the Blockchain Australia here. I just wanted to ask, can you share any projects that are actually accelerating the supply chain method in blockchain for COVID-19?
I think from not from a government or a COVID point of view, but I think some of the projects which I mentioned are some of them are based in Australia, some of them are global. So I think provenance and tracking applies to any situation. whether COVID or not. But specific to COVID, I don't believe any project on top of my head, but there is definitely more increased sense of awareness in terms of knowing what is the source of the goods and services, particularly goods in this case of in case of supply chain. And people want to know what is the source. Is it responsibly sourced, or if it's locally produced and locally supplied? But I think some of the projects that come to my mind were there pre-COVID.
Sure. Okay. I guess I'm opening the panel for any more about COVID-19 and medical supply chains. If there's nothing, we'll move on to the next topic.
I'm happy to talk about the impact of COVID-19, but from a but more sort of from a cyber security perspective as well. You're talking about sort of areas that have accelerated, and I think that, you know, if you look at some of the stats, every 39 seconds there's a new attack somewhere on the web, and 86% of data breaches globally are financially motivated, and our current environment enables fraudsters to prey on these weaker links. It was reported last year in 2019, the average cost to companies to fix a data breach was $3.92 million. So yeah, we're talking about a problem that was already there last year that has just escalated with COVID. So if you think about, you know, as this pandemic continues, let's face it, we're in a massive state of change as we're adopting new ways of working. Primarily, this means we're working from home, where our own internet connections are exposed and personal devices are being used without the sophisticated security that you'd normally experience in a workplace. So we're much more exposed and vulnerable now. And it was interesting, I was listening to a webinar actually earlier today, and my old boss from Optus, John Padaritis, was speaking, and he said there's two types of companies. There's the ones that have been attacked, and there's the ones that don't know that they've been attacked. So, you know, this is the sort of I guess, environment that we're facing right now, and it really does put into perspective that importance of cybersecurity. So, you know, where does that leave us in regards to blockchain? You know, security measures have to be increased in order to protect our data, and that of our company and that of our own. We're all responsible for protecting our information, and too often there are multiple instances, when digital services that are scattered all over the place make it near impossible to manage. So, you know, if we can empower citizens to control their data and build their own verified attributes, which can be shared with verified recipients for the purpose of what that transaction is needed for, then we can help to manage the security of our personal data in the future, and have like a single trusted source of truth that comprises of various attributes that can be used by that user. It's still a long way off, but it's certainly moving in that direction, and the industry is definitely putting in place various different frameworks that are alluding to that. So I think it's just really a case of time, and COVID has really accelerated that process.
Cool. Thank you for your insight there. Yep, go ahead, Karen.
I think we've missed a big opportunity. Like, I think if blockchain had been really more advanced when COVID hit, we would be seeing a lot more blockchain-enabled apps being taken up by the government. So, you know, the case of this COVID app that we've got apparently hasn't caught any people in Victoria, and so, you know, you kind of wonder, they spent like 500K, didn't they, on this app. So if we'd had like something that worked and was blockchain enabled, we would be in a much better place. So I'm hoping that we've now got the government, you know, rolling out the blockchain roadmap, and hopefully what will come from that is a commitment from the government to put in some blockchain enabled apps. We've got the health data, which again is, you know, not blockchain enabled. So we keep missing these opportunities, and I think somebody has to go first. Somebody has to say, yes, we're going to do a blockchain enabled app. We've got the ASX trying to do that and running behind. So then I think, you know, everyone's going, oh, they can't do it, we can't do it. So yeah, it's just that like push we need in Australia. I think China's doing a wonderful job of putting a lot more onto the blockchain. And you know, Dubai had a commitment to build smart cities, and there were a whole lot of blockchain people heading over there before COVID. So we just keep missing the boat with this thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's some important information there that we are missing out. If we had an application and we're ready and we were advanced, then everyone would use it because it's ready. But we always see the blockchain as something that is unachievable. It's about the future because we're not seeing it in everyday use. It's something that you need to use all the time. Okay, let's move on to, I guess, topic 3, digital ID and ownership of ID. We've seen in some countries that they have implemented the digital ID successfully. So with the current pandemic highlights that the need for effective digital identity into sharp relief. As social distancing measures are imposed worldwide, remote access to systems and services is more in demand than ever. The calls are continuing to grow on governments to forge a path out of the lockout. So the question is, in line with this view, we wanted to understanding your views on the importance of digital ID, who owns the ID. Additionally, how do we think the future of ID will be impacted by technology? So I'll start with you, Ralph.
Again, I'll touch on exactly what Karen earlier said. Like these days, wherever we go, we have to provide every single information, date of birth, licenses. And again, back to the application tracking and tracing, people were worried that if they download this app, are they going to expose their digital information or their personal details? So in the future, what I'm saying, if I'm understanding the question right, this will have a big impact. So by enabling blockchain solutions, especially on the phones, let's say if we have a contact tracking tracing app, whereby the information is stored anonymously, and if someone actually affected with the COVID, and through the Bluetooth technology, all the people around them where they got in contact with them, they get notified, but they don't know who I am as a person. And then at the same time, these digital identity anonymously notify their GPs, and these GPs are notified. And so at the same time, they book those appointments. So you can see digital identity can be controlled anonymously. And the Australian government recently also did a medical research using a digital identity, but anonymously. So it's more like a consent based. So if any patient is happy to give their their information for clinical trial, they can, all those companies can anonymously run searches on their data, but they never expose their information. So they can be anonymous at the same time, but at the same time, they can be rewarded if there are any future royalties given to them. So digital identity is going to be more and more popular, more use cases going to come. We are working currently on a clinical trial project where digital identity is the one thing that we're working on, and Hyperledger is something that's already solving this problem. And Nadeem can actually touch on that since he's looking after the technical side. I'll let him go through that side. And I don't know how much I can talk about it, but yes, Nadeem can definitely touch on that.
No worries, Rolf. I think Cindy has got a product or project working on the ID side, so I'll let her speak, and then maybe I'll go
Absolutely.
after her.
Yeah, I'll look. I mean, obviously, it's not here to plug the product or anything. So it's more about sort of giving our audience some awareness and so on. And I mean, the way I look at it is we're in this fourth industrial revolution now. It's the digital age. So in a lot of ways with COVID-19, I'm saying, well, thank God for that, or we would be really in a world of trouble. Having been hit with COVID-19, imagine for one moment not being able to order goods online or communicate over the internet, FaceTime with your friends and so on. That would actually be true isolation. But of course, you know, with that backdrop, many of us have been forced into these digital engagements that we would never have possibly imagined before. And any digital engagement requires data or often, you know, some form of verification or sharing of some information. So whenever you enroll for a new service, that supplier is going to want to know information about you. And that's typically known as personal identifiable information. And that's the sort of asset that's seen on an organisation's balance sheet as highly, highly valuable. So, of course, getting the balance right about what information do you share in order to identify yourself to that provider is a very, very fine line. So it really only should be about the essential components and attributes that are needed for that particular job to be done. Going back to Karen's point earlier, why did she need to provide all of that information for a particular experience? It's not necessary. So I think that, in terms of digital identity, look, I guess back in 2013, I built a digital identity platform for Optus, and it was really just moving physical into digital. But it still meant that every individual had to continuously verify themselves every single time they had to take some sort of action that was requiring them to be AML compliant. So my view on that was, well, why do we have to keep on verifying ourselves every single time? Why can't we have reusable information, and not just limited to the information that is assumed to be the trusted information for doing a KYC, for example. In our day-to-day lives, as we have digital connectivity, we are creating many other attributes that really can give a higher level of assurity that we are who we say we are. But it should be up to us as individuals to decide what we share with whom for a particular job to be done. So I think ID is going to have a bigger role to play, definitely. And as I said, accelerated because with COVID-19, everybody's had to go into a digital world, whether they like it or not, really.
Definitely. And so, Nadeem, do you want to share with us?
So I think identity has been the crux of human beings, I feel, right? So ID goes long back. Today's world, whether digital or not, uh, drives on who an individual is, right? What is the identity? Now, we have been stuck with this paper-based identities for far too long, and that needs to change. But the problem is that the technology is not ready yet, right? As at least according to me. So let's say we go digital and we start having this digital certificates, which we already see, but that digital identifications are not very informative, in the sense that they are not smart. They cannot be used in a transaction, right? So some of the use cases that I've seen in terms of the ID is like very great work happening in the space. One of the company that comes to my mind is Evanim, which basically has come up with a very innovative self-sovereign identity-based solution, and they are working on it. So the tech is still being worked upon. But what if the identities can be made part of transactions, right? So let's say the license that we have or the birth certificate that we have, what if they could be made digital, but they could also be made part of a transaction? So someone is able to verify your identity and can perform an action based on that. A very simple example of it is, let's say you want to go to a bar or a pub where the condition of entry is that you should be above 18 or 19 years old, right? Now, in order to prove that, you need to show your license where the security guy is able to verify it and then let you in. But when you show your license to the security guy, you basically disclose your address, your date of birth as well. Whereas the information that was only needed was whether you are above 18 or not. So what if the identity can be digitized and can be made of a transaction in such a way that you're able to prove you're above 18, and that's about it? The security guy doesn't need to know much. So that's the intelligence that we need in today's world and going forward, where the identity can be made digital, but can also be made intelligent, wherein we can do various sort of actions based on that. Um, and we have been fortunate. I mean, like in Australia, the processes are well defined, well governed, as compared to some of the other countries, wherein people don't have passports, right? Some people have lost their birth certificates. They have no physical identity left with them because of so many issues. It could be floods, it could be earthquakes, it could be civil war. So if at all there was a technology which can take all the identifications like passport and proof of identities online, then it could help them a lot in migrate to another country, or it could help them in getting jobs. And there's endless possibilities if there is a technology which can provide proof of who you are in so many situations. And personally, I've got my birth certificate back from India, which is in my native language, which is Gujarati, and it is pretty much useless over here in Australia, right? And then I need to go through a complete process of converting it into English and digitizing it before I can do anything with it in Australia. What if there was a system or a technology which works cross borders, and you are able to it saves time, effort, and money, and that means productivity. So we need to find these innovative ways of working using technology, which would basically increase productivity.
Yeah, sure. And last of all, Karen, your thoughts?
I think this is the single most important piece we can work on. The concept that you could own your own ID and can control, as Nadeem said, which parts of it you want to share. And, working in HR, the thought of every time you go for a job, you've got to write your resume, you've got to provide your psych test, you've got to provide your university degrees, you've got to provide references. So if they were all pre-verified and you could just share them, life would be much easier. And you could control who sees it, you could control who doesn't see it, and where it goes. And I think this is a race that globally, there's billions of people without ID. I know that Type Human's done a great work with the Red Cross. They did micro-credentialing where you could move between countries as a volunteer and just share that you've done your first aid course or you've done this language, and that was all done on the blockchain. So we're seeing movement. It's small, but the bigger picture, whoever owns this ID solution is, there's definitely a race on to see who's going to get that.
Yeah, do you see that that's something that I guess all of us can work together on, or is it just an enterprise thing where every company is just trying to race to get to the answer and like win the gold at the end of the game?
Yeah, I think Accenture is part of like a really big conglomerate that's working on ID with a whole lot of other organizations. But even within that, you're seeing cracks, because I think it's like, if you could, I think Nadeem made a really good point. There's so many people that don't have the paperwork, but the majority of people will have access to a phone. So if you'll have your ID, somewhere on your phone that you can carry around with you, and if you lose it, a way of securing it. This is a massive piece of work, and it really needs to be in safe hands as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I've seen some countries implement digital ID. One country I know of is Estonia. They've implemented and for years. Like, is that something that I guess other countries can lean on? Estonia, is that something that as a government organization that can happen, or is it just you just develop your own and you move on?
Yeah, what I feel is that the regulation needs to be there for sure. So obviously identity works only if it's verified by someone, right? If you come up with your own identity as an individual and nobody has verified it, then it's not useful. So ID works in conjunction with verification of the ID and who has authorized that ID for you. So government definitely has to play a very big role in identity verification and ID issuance. So if governments can implement a system wherein the identification are using the new age technologies, then that technology can be used by several other ecosystem partners and build workflows on top of it. So, but I believe, yes, something like what Estonia has done can be implemented, but I believe it can only be done if the government is involved.
Definitely, I guess it's one of those things. If it becomes a must-do thing that everyone has to do, then of course it will basically accelerate the need for it, and it'll accelerate the adoption for it. Sure. So yeah, we've discussed 3 of these major topics today. I just wanted to open up the panel if there was any, I guess, last comments that we wanted to discuss or debate. Karen?
I guess it's a very leading edge discussion that we're having. We're talking about blockchain, we're talking about cybersecurity. You know, I just want to welcome as many people to this conversation as possible. Hopefully it's not too technical, and welcome, you know, as many people into our blockchain community, come to our meetups, get to know us and learn, and you know, hopefully there'll be job opportunities in the future as well. So I think get on board. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I guess our channel is about learning, and I guess trying to teach the general public about understanding what these advances in technology mean for us. You know, and I guess it's really hard to get to simple terms, but yeah, we're having all you guys on the panel, it really helps. So, Rafi, your thoughts and I guess outro comments.
Well, my vision is that all the blockchain companies and governments should build one consortium first together, so that, for example, Cindy, their companies are really good at digital identity side. So if we come across any potential use case of clients, we should be sitting together and come together and say, okay, we got a client, we have a problem, you have already done this 90% of the work, why don't we come sit down together and you solve this problem and then we solve the rest. But what's happening, everyone is working in silos because they're running the race. But if we're working for, we want to improve humanity, we want to bring a new way how things can change, this can change humanity completely, then we should come together and start working together rather than just be running around in different directions. That's what my take so far, since I've been working in blockchain space. Yeah.
Yep, definitely for the greater good of humanity. If everyone had that mindset, we'll probably be in there already. Cindy, thoughts?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that in all of these sort of emerging technology spaces, particularly in blockchain, we just have such a huge skills shortage. So the more that we can encourage to get on board, not be frightened by the terminology. You know, often when people hear the words blockchain, they think, oh, you know, that's a digital currency, cryptocurrency, and sort of have varying different sort of opinions about that. But you know, what I say to people is, when you use things like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Access, Excel, PowerPoint, any of those, you don't walk around saying, oh, I'm using a Windows operating system. You talk about the application, because the application has a purpose for what it's actually trying to solve for you. So, you know, PowerPoint's there to enable you to make PowerPoints and create those things. The underlying platform is not really mentioned. So it's the same really with blockchain. It's an underlying platform, and then we have applications that sit on top of that. And those applications can go across digital voting, charities, supply chain, real estate, ID, of course, claims processing, you name it, it goes on and on. So I think that, you know, as I said, it's not about being afraid of the terminology, you know, jumping in, encouraging people to get on board and learn more about that. And part of what we do at Serendip ID is actually provide online training, and we make it in a way that it relates to the individual user. So in some of our cybersecurity courses, for example, they're often used for companies to be compliant. You know, they need to put people through training, and if you're anything like me, if I've sat through a compliance training course, I find it as boring as anything. So, you know, how do I make that something that's really relative to me? So what we do is we start to incorporate, well, where is your data being held, for example? You know, think about who has your information and what do they have and what are they using it for and how exposed is that? So when people start to really sort of feel emotionally attached with the subject matter, they learn an awful lot more. So what we try to do is really bring that reality into people who are at the end of that training course. So they can do all of those online, and it's very nice and easy to follow and simple. And it really is about embracing people into that knowledge bank and helping to improve skills and get more professionals on board in Australia.
Awesome. And Nadeem?
Yeah, sure. So I think what is needed is definitely awareness, as Karen mentioned, that people need to start looking into it. The reason is that it's an important technology. We all know, so many people have said that this is technology which is going to change the way digital world works in terms of privacy, security, provenance, and so many more things. And it's going to impact so many industries. We have seen the digital currencies. We have seen the CBDC, where the governments of various countries are planning to roll out digital currencies, digital dollars, as they call it. We are seeing use cases in supply chain. We are seeing use cases in identities, and so forth and so on. So I think I would really like to give a call out for all the people there to try to understand the technology and start somewhere. As Karen mentioned, join the meetup, check out some videos, or reach out to individuals or professionals who have worked in the space and build your way up and try to increase your knowledge about the technology. And this is very good tool for I'd say the people joining who are new in the technology space. So this could be a good differentiator for you. So I think you should learn the technology, and then this would open up ways. And we need more brain and smart people in the industry, because the technology and the industry is in very nascent state. So we can use all the help that we can get. So if more and more people are aware of this technology, then we would see more ideas coming up. And as Cindy mentioned, that what is important is to understand the benefits of it, rather than being stuck with the technical jargons of it. If everybody tries to abstract that and then provide and then focus on the use cases of it and the benefits of it, I think then this would really, I think, accelerate um, in a better fashion.
For sure. Yeah, so I guess we heard from everyone. Thank you for coming on the panel. Any last comments? Anything for anything?
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Been awesome. I think this is one of many we would like to have you guys on. Hopefully catch up with you guys one-on-one and go through your individual projects for sure. Something that we'll explore in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Conversation. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
So thank you all for taking the time. BlockChain Solutions Australia. If interested in building blockchain or blockchain Australia for membership, and Cindy for digital identity, data related privacy inquiries. And we will share all the relevant links to all you guys. And alternatively, you can drop us a note at our email address. Like, share, subscribe. We're here to educate. We're here to learn together. So continue follow us on our journey, and we'll take you with us. So with that, I'll see you in the next one.